Welcome to CMB Connect. I'm your host, Val Buresch, and in this episode, it is a pure pleasure to be joined by Nancy Zhu. Nancy is the SVP and Director of Financial Reporting and Analysis at Cornerstone Home Lending, where she oversees financial reporting, analysis, budgeting, performance measurement, and all other internal and external reporting. So thank you for joining us, Nancy.
Thank you, Val. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, when we were preparing for this conversation, I was impressed by your formidable background in accounting and finance, evidenced by your certifications like CPA and CMA. What was the catalyst that brought you into the mortgage banking industry 6 years ago?
Oh, Val, honestly, 6 years ago, I was working for a consulting company. I was a consulting manager at the time, helping my clients, mostly CFOs and controllers, to automate and streamlining their reporting and budgeting processes. So I consider myself having a good accounting background, because I have all, the educations from accounting and finance. And then I was having exposure in the technology side. So I was familiar with all those ERP systems and reporting, we call BI tool, business intelligence tools. And I was able to combine reporting tools and which is connected to the ERP systems, and I understand the data and the data flow. And I also know how accounting was done, how data was being utilized. So I was able to help my clients, mostly CFOs and controllers, to streamline their processes. However, my accounting knowledge, and I feel like those skill sets are kind of transferable. So it's meaning it's spanning across different industries. So I wasn't really looking for a specific industry, because my past experiences is always covering all kinds of industries. Now, the job over at my consulting company become later on, because it requires a lot of traveling, and my family duties kind of prevent me from traveling all the time. So I was thinking about switching to the next job, which is I wanted to work inside a corporate setting. And the industry, I wasn't really seeking out a particular industry to come to, because as I said, my skill sets are kind of transferable across industries. So I remember I was interviewing for 3 jobs, and I actually received 3 offers from the 3 jobs. The one offer was from a manufacturing company. The other one was from a waste management company. And the third one, which is the last one, was from mortgage industry. And the reason why I picked mortgage industry was because the people influenced my decision. The first person that really influenced my decision was the CFO at that time. His name was John. He has retired, by the way, and he really liked my skill sets. And he told me that I checked off pretty much all the boxes. He has been looking for a person like me for some time, and he was very happy to see me. And as a matter of fact, he moved the whole process so fast in the interviewing process. From the beginning, when I received a phone call from the recruiter, until I received the offer, the whole process took about a week. While other jobs, I was, talking to different people, the CFOs, the VP finance. They were taking time. But this job, Cornerstone Home Lending, the CFO, John, he pretty much pushed the whole process within a week. So I can tell he really wanted me to help him to streamline the reporting processes. And I remember he told me that so John, he's a very data-driven person. He likes to read data. He has an acumen to the data. But at that time, the process is kind of manual. So it's pretty much Excel-driven spreadsheets using data dumps, the formulas. Sometimes Excel formula is good, but it cannot take care of everything. Sometimes, you will have to do a manual keying into the reports. And the analysts were stressed out because it's a lot of work, a lot of reports, a lot of demands. And I remember John told me that he commented that, Nancy, I wasn't even sure the data that was given to me was accurate or not. So That time, Cornerstone was in the middle of, I think they just implemented a ERP system. So they had a new accounting slash ERP system, and they purchased a new software for reporting purposes. So they were looking for revamping the whole reporting process for the company by using a new system and a new BI tool. Mm-hmm. So he made a decision. He was so decisive. He pushed everything so quickly, and didn't even bargain or negotiate with whatever I was requesting. And that was the first person who really influenced my decision to come to Cornerstone Home Lending. And the second person that influenced my decision was actually the receptionist at Cornerstone Home Lending. Her name was Terry, and she has also retired. She was so warm and so nice and so welcoming. I remember I came to Cornerstone for interview and I was nervous because I've never been here, and as an interviewee, naturally we are nervous. And she greeted me with such a smile and such a non-judgmental way. And I instantaneously felt calm. And I feel Terry, the receptionist, no matter how significant her role is, I think she is the face of the company. If the face of a company is such a warm and kind person, I just think that this company will be worthwhile to come to work for and make contributions for. And that's the reason why I came to Cornerstone Home Lending. I wasn't picking the industry at that time, but it turned out that it's such a nice decision, and I never regret a day that I came to the mortgage industry. Now, when I started working for mortgage industry, I got fascinated. I did not realize how fun it was because of the complexities and the dynamics of the industry. So before, like I mentioned, I know I have strong accounting background, and I'm pretty strong in technology. I'm pretty savvy to identify which database to go for what information and put them together and do it quickly, streamlines the process. So it all makes everything easy and fast. So that way we can spend more time analyzing the numbers instead of gathering them like before, the status quo before. So I was very, very enthusiastic about the job I was doing because I knew I'm putting into use all my skill sets in accounting, in technology, in using tools, and in how I understand the databases and the structures and the schemas and the fields and how we link the fields together, the keys. So I was very happy enough. And then after I came over into the mortgage industry, I realized that I have a finance background. I have a Master of Science in Finance. And after I graduated from my degree, I was mostly working in accounting and auditing and financial analysis. I wasn't really putting my finance knowledge into use. And as you know, finance is all about investment, capital market, primary market, secondary market, bond pricing and hedging and the derivatives, but you don't use that in your day-to-day accounting job. So after I came over to the mortgage industry, I realized that, wait a second, I have another piece of puzzle that I can utilize it. Honestly, the finance background helped me greatly in how I understand secondary market, how capital market was doing, how they were performing the hedging, and helped me greatly in how understanding how the data, the reports, the hedging reports coming from the hedging system. So it's really, really instrumental in helping me to understand the number, because eventually all the data will translate into financial numbers, because we need to book accounting entries and you need to able to analyze the numbers. Although I'm not expert, I'm not working the capital market, but really it helped me to understand what they do and help me to bridge the gaps between accounting and capital market.
Yes, you were able to speak their language,
right,
basically
somewhat.
With your knowledge and that fusion of skills and background and understanding.
Right.
Yeah. What leapt at me as you were talking is the fact that you were hired, and just going back to your story, how you started in Cornerstone Home Lending at a time when that company was going through technology transformation, it seems, with this new system. But what they realized is that the human element cannot be replaced. So they were looking for someone like you who can speak data and technology, and also who can relate to other human beings in the company and make that connection, make the adoption of that technology faster. Would you agree that that's what was happening, that you were in the right place in the right time at that time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you just to elaborate a little bit more about your fascination by the complexity of the mortgage industry. Can you pinpoint a specific moment or perhaps a concept that made you realize this was the career for you, apart from the human element and that wonderful story about Terry and John?
Right. Yeah. I mean, so so mortgage industry has, the whole life cycle starts with production, right? It has a production process, which is already very dynamic and complex. And then later on, once the loans are closed and funded, most IMBs will go through a selling process, selling into the secondary marketing. And it comes with hedging, and from accounting perspective, because this is the lens that I'm looking at the whole thing. From accounting perspective, we recognize fair value. So we do a lot of fair value recognitions in the accounting world. So accounting event is when the loans are locked. Technically, it's an accounting event. We need to put a value to the lock, which most people they're not aware of that. Because once we commit to the borrower and provide a rate lock to a borrower, we have a commitment. So we need to recognize that commitment, because when the interest rates changes with the market, we still need to fulfill the commitment. So if the interest rates turns to the other way, then it's going to be a potential loss for the company. So it's a accounting event that we need to recognize the fair value for the interest rate lock at the time of lock. So that's a new concept. And it's, the whole process of calculating the value for the lock pipeline itself is a very, very complex calculation, because it's all based on assumptions and based on past historical assumptions and data. And you look at how much those potential loss is worth in the market, and you also look at what is the cost that will help to accomplish the process from lock to the end of the production cycle. So we have to calculate the estimated cost component to it. So that process is complex, and then after that, when the lock turns into an actual loan, it's a completed loan, and it's waiting to be sold into secondary market. So that completed loan we call warehouse loans. We also need to put a fair value to the warehouse loans. And the warehouse loan fair value calculation is somewhere similar to the interest rate lock calculation, but it's still different, because the warehouse loans, a lot of the cost components are already accomplished. So whatever the cost that put into the warehouse, it's pretty much done. Like the discounts we have already received, all the appraisal expenses, it's already realized. So the warehouse fair value has a lower component or less component of costs compared with the lock pipeline, because the lock pipeline is really sitting in the pipeline, so it's waiting to invest in a lot of the costs and the expenses associated with the loan production process. So that's a second piece of complexity to put a fair value for the warehouse loans. And then the complexity just continues on. Later on, the loans are waiting to be sold into the secondary market, and the hedging piece, because every month we need to recognize the hedging gain or loss. That's mostly for the pipeline. And then the hedging piece is another complex piece, because believe me, a lot of the accountants, they have no idea what hedging is. What is the scale of hedging? What are we doing hedging for? And let alone you need to understand those reports that's mostly coming from the capital market and translate them into accounting numbers. So that part, to me, is also a very complex piece. So, and move on to the cycle. And then later on, suppose we sold the loans into the market to the investor, but our responsibility does not stop here. So we still need to, a lot of time, like Cornerstone, we retain a lot of the loans, even if we sold the loans to Fannie, Ginnie, and Freddie. So we have a servicing portfolio. And according to GAAP, we need to put a value for the MSR, mortgage servicing rights. And the whole fair value for the mortgage servicing rights is a very, very complex process. So as you see,
it depends a lot, also driven by CPR, right?
Right,
The
CPRs,
conditional prepayment rate.
Assumptions, yes.
Yes.
And although I don't calculate the value, but I know because from the finance perspective, it's all discount cash flow model. So we are projecting the future. What is the future cash flow looks like, and take away what is the future costs, and based on assumptions, how much should be realized, and then discount back by utilizing a type of discount rate, and then you calculate a fair value. So that process is complex, even if I'm not calculating that fair value, but we needed to understand their reports. What is being put into the assumptions? Are the assumptions reasonable or not? Why do they change their assumptions? So it's a lot of deep topics involved in getting those calculations.
Yes, yeah. And you're one of the few people who understand that. I mean, even in mortgage banking, most people go day in and day out without thinking about those issues. So thank you for lifting a little bit the cover and allowing us to see the complexity of mortgage banking from that perspective, especially the accounting perspective.
Yeah, but I was lucky enough because I'm dealing with all the reports, and I was tracking, regional performance, and I was looking at, the consolidation. I was analyzing different aspects of the financial reports, and I was also in charge of publishing the servicing packet for the company on a monthly basis. So I was able to slowly peek into different aspects of the companies. From the production side, because I don't work in production, so I don't have a lot of the knowledge on the front end of the business. But we were also tracking some of the key KPI like metrics like cycle time, pull through, and underwriter touches. A lot of times, if we cannot get to the numbers, we will rely on people who are subject matter experts to get the numbers, but we do collect all those informations and put it into a nice packet, and we're comparing across different areas in the regions, or we are looking at by channels to see which channel is more profitable and which channel is less, and how we allocate the costs, things like that. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's very complex, and took me a while to really understand the different bits of the industry, of the company. But I think the complexity, the more complex they are, the more motivated I am to to debunk the myth.
That's wonderful. Well, there's also one more thing that's very interesting about you, and that's also fascinated me as being a first-generation American. But you particularly, you are interesting because you've lived in 4 different countries.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about that? And
Yes.
also, how has that global experience shaped your approach to business and leadership in such a industry like the US mortgage market that is location based?
Right. So I was born and raised in China, and I came to the US about over 20 years ago. I came to the US, but after I arrived, I also went to Australia, and I was there for about 2 years. And after Australia, I went to Indonesia, and I was there for about 4 years. And then we moved back to the US. Houston is where I'm currently living. So every country I've lived has its uniqueness. Sometimes they can be drastically different. For example, Australia and Indonesia, where I lived 2 and 4 years respectively, they are completely different countries. Australia it's located in the southern hemisphere, so as you can imagine, we have different seasons, right? Their summer is our winter, So we had a Christmas in Australia during hot summer days. We were wearing shorts. And they drive on the left side of the road. So it took me a while to get used to that because I'm always worried about I'm being hit. And their weather was awesome. It's very sunny. It's sunny all year round. In the winter, it's sunny and windy, but in the summer, it's sunny and hot. UV ray was very, very strong, and everybody has to put on sunblock. And supposedly, they have a lot of high rate of skin cancers. So statistically, by age 70, 70% of Australians get skin cancer. So the reason why is that's what I heard was they have a missing ozone, or they have a thinning ozone layer. And also the air was clear, so the UV ray just hit directly to the surface. So therefore, if you live there, in schools, in everywhere, in public, it's strongly advised that people need to wear sunblock everywhere you go. And in addition to that, it's multiple layers of protection, including wearing hat, put on sleeves, and stay under the shade, and don't forget put sunblock. So it's all a unique experience to me. The food was awesome. Weather was good. A lot of beaches, and they spend their leisure time on beaches most of the time. And it's just a phenomenal place that they have a lot of fresh produce, and everybody is independent. So meaning, if you want something to be fixed, you have to do it yourself. Otherwise, you have to pay a lot of expenses to hire somebody to do it for you, and everything is expensive, of course. Indonesia is the extreme opposite. It's a developing country. It's located in close to tropical areas, so it's always hot and humid. And they have two seasons. They have rainy season and a non-raining season, but it's hot and humid all year around. And so when we go outside, we don't, instead of putting sunblock, we put mosquito repellent because it's very humid. It's very easy to get mosquito bites. Yes. The places that we hang out in Indonesia is not anything like a beach or outdoor. Unlike Australia, we go to the malls, and that's pretty much where we go for leisure time. And the lifestyle is fairly easy because the labor there was very affordable. So average middle class families, they can afford one or two maids. And when we were living there, we even had drivers. So because we were advised not to drive because the traffic was terrible. It's always congested, a lot of motorcycles on the road, and a lot of madness on the road. So we were told not to drive, so we had a driver to drive us around. However, the city, the place we lived, it's called Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia. It has a lot of expats living there. So food-wise, their food was very spicy, but they have a lot of varieties of different kinds of international food, especially Japanese food, Korean food, American food, and all kind of other kind of foods. It's just so abundant, and you'll be surprised.
Wonderful.
right. So it's just different life. So back in China, I've always been the good student. I was always the top. So we kind of ranking everybody in school all the time, and I was always the top ranked student in the school. I was ranked number one for 6 consecutive years in my middle school and high school. So I was always studying. Just what I can remember when I was living there, growing up, was I did not remember anything else. I was studying, and I was a good student. I was a top student, and I graduated from one of the top universities in China. And when after I came to the U.S. 20 years ago, I realized that I really had nothing. I mean, the language, they spoke English so fast, even if I have been learning English back in my hometown. But the English I learned was different from the English that they spoke. And I could not even follow what they're saying. 20 years ago. And of course, my education did not count. Even if the university I came from, I graduated from, was one of the top 5 universities in China, but nobody knew about this. And my experience working for Ernst & Young in the Shanghai office, I was an auditor there, but because we had a different gap, accounting gap, the US gap is unique in the world. It's different from European gap. It's different from China gap. It's different from Australia gap, but their gaps are somewhat similar. They're all kind of following the European or international standards, but US gap is totally different. So what I did, my working experience in Ernst & Young did not count. My education did not count. My English was terrible. So when I came to the US, I had a complete reset. I had to start from zero. So I remember I went to UH, University of Houston, for my master's degree in finance. And I was struggling in understanding the professor. I mean, I could understand about 80%. By 20%, I wasn't fully digest those. And I was so worried that whether I could catch up with my studies. But I tried. I mean, I tried very hard. So I graduated with a 4.0 GPA from UVitch, which I'm very proud of. So
That's
every
amazing.
country is different. It's unique. So one thing I've learned is that I've seen a lot this global experience. I'm living in different countries, and every country, their culture are different. Their lifestyles are different. The weathers are different. But one thing in common, in my opinion, is the people. Everybody is living their life. Everybody is honestly earning their life. They earning their living. Everybody has their troubles, their struggles, and their vulnerabilities. So when I see people, I don't see the differences. I see what's common because, we all wanted to be respected. We all wanted to have a life, have a purpose. We all wanted to work hard for our next generation. We all want to protect our children, no matter what background they're coming from. They all want to have a good life. They all wanted to improve themselves. They all want to be good people. So that's what I see when I look at people from different backgrounds.
This is so powerful, Nancy. This is an amazing story, and relating it to that global experience to the US mortgage market. I couldn't agree more with you. I had similar experience being at top in your own country of birth and then coming here, starting from zero. Nobody cares where you come from and what you have learned, what university you have graduated, how prestigious it is. You have to reset when you come to the US.
Right.
What a powerful perspective you bring of that mutual respect for other people and for acknowledging that everybody's trying to do their best, and just seeing that and bringing that perspective with you to our market is incredibly powerful.
Right. And I just want to add is I realized that no place is perfect. There's no paradise. Because a lot of people ask me, out of all the countries that you have lived, what country do you like the best? And I always say that the country where I'm currently living is the best, because in my heart, I think there's no paradise. Just like the people, we are not perfect. Nobody is perfect. No place is perfect. But what we can do is how we can make use of what we have and turn them into the best use. So I enjoy every place that I have lived. I like the people around me where I live. And I just wanted to make the best use of what I have and turn into something that's meaningful and helpful.
Yes, that's beautiful, really beautiful. Well, I want to pivot a little bit back to the power of data and automation, because it's where my heart is and where I think our industry should be because of all the data we have. But specifically, I wanted to ask you about your experience. You are an accountant. That's financial reporting. This is where you live. So reporting is the keyword there. But you mentioned to me that you are focusing on data-driven insights. I wanted to ask you to walk us through an example of a process that you automated and the strategic value that was unlocked as a result of that automation.
Yes. So 6 years ago, I came to Cornerstone, and as I mentioned, at that time, the process was pretty manual. A lot of reports, a lot of them are in Excel, and it was driven by Excel formulas. So I came over, I started to revamp the reporting process. So what I do is, I have the knowledge about the software, the BI reporting tool that we have. And I also have the knowledge about the ERP system, the cross-modular information in the new ERP system. So I basically redesign the whole process by using the software we call Jet Reports. So I use Jet Reports, which is connected to the ERP system, and I grab the information from different pieces, and I write logic in those reports. So now it took, of course, it sounds easy, but it took me pretty much a full year to revamp all the reporting process, redesign all the logics from scratch, including, all the affiliate company. We had about 15, 16 affiliate companies, and every company has a reporting package. We also have regional reports, regional reporting packets, and we also have management, the executive team packets, and we just have different kinds of packets, and pretty much redesigned all those reports by utilizing the software. And sometimes some information cannot be automated because it could come from a straight a flat Excel file that's provided by an external company. In that case, there's the only way that we can do is using Excel formulas, but we can still do something about it because we can, designing an input area. So in reporting wise, I'm just speaking the reporting perspective.
Yes.
In reporting wise, in order for the reports to be automated and streamlined, we need to be smart about it. So usually there is a input area. If you need to provide input, you want to collect the input area in one central area, and then you flow the input area into the reporting into the reports. So that way, if one of the inputs changes, you don't need to go back to each individual report to change that change. So you come to the input area where you have a central repertoire of all those information that coming from somewhere else. You have that centralized location. You just change the input directly, and then everything else will flow into the reports. So that's the kind of design in the back end of all those packages, right? Because we want to be streamlined. We want to be efficient. So that way, we have to think about what if things change, how we maintain those reports, how we make changes when things change, how we make changes as fast as possible. Ideally, we wanted to have maintenance-free reports. So that way, all you need to do is just click the button, say, okay, run this for this period, run that for, rolling 12 months, run that for year to date, and then everything will take care of. But sometimes things may happen that may make it impossible to fully automate a certain reporting process. And that way, the only thing that makes it better is to make sure that there are sections. There's a section that's just for input. There are sections just for assumptions, and there's a section for the reports. So that way, when any of the element changes, it will flow into the reports. So I kind of redesigned all those reportings, either automated fully or partially by leveraging different levels of automations. And then the other thing that I did after I came over is that, in the mortgage industry, we're not good at budgeting because things change too fast, and we cannot predict too far into the future. Yeah. So we didn't have a formal budgeting process when I came over. And sometimes, some of the warehouse banks may require some budgeting for the next year, and we may do that like on a high level, just based on high level assumptions, and we will come up with a top-down approach budget, and then we send to the banks, and the bank says, okay, then we are good. We move on. We never did a bottoms-up detailed budgeting process. So I came over to Cornerstone, and we, the CFO at that time wanted us to go through a bottoms-up budgeting process. And that's just an experimenting because we never done that before. And we went through processes of picking the software, and then eventually I recommend to use the inherent budgeting module inside the ERP system, because it's free, and one, that's free, and the two, it's also because it has enough functionality. Usually, the innate budgeting modules inside an ERP system, it does certain functions, but it's not robust. And that's why a lot of people go to outside vendors looking for a more robust budgeting process or software. But for us, I think, the inherent budgeting module inside an ERP system just works just fine. And so we went towards that route. And I began to design budgeting modules, because those modules are it's like a template, right? In Excel, we utilize softwares and put all those information, like what's a historical number looks like. And then in the middle, it's all the assumptions. What's driving those numbers, right? It's either by per loan basis or volume driven, or sometimes it's a fixed income or fixed expenses, or sometimes it's a variable expenses that varies with the production volume. So it has a assumptions in the middle, and then on the right, so the budgeting module has three sections, right? The historical numbers shows what happened in the past. The middle section is the assumption piece, shows what's driving the numbers, what's driving the historical numbers. And then the right section is the budgeting for the next year. So that way, the budgeting is designed in such a way that it's kind of makes everything easier to budget into the future, because it has all those pieces of information in one page. So I designed all those budgeting templates and hand out to all the branches and regional contacts and all the ABAs and all the departments. And those are already done in a pretty automated way and has a lot of good information there. And then hand it over to them. They will work on their budgeting individually and then hand it back to us. And then once we receive the budget, we upload it into the system, which is the ERP system that I just mentioned. It has an inherent budgeting module. And I perform the whole process with fairly least amount of work involved, because budgeting, the bottoms up budgeting is a big endeavor for a lot of companies, and a lot of companies they probably it's taking about at least 3 months to finish the whole process. And it requires iteration sometimes, because when the first initial draft, it's maybe not good enough, and then it's too high or too low, and then we go back and renegotiate, and we rediscuss, and then come back again, and then we submit the information into system, and then after that we just pull the numbers using softwares and compare actuals with budget, how we are doing. So that process, I designed that process for Cornerstone. And we had a first ever bottoms up budgeting here. So that
amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, amazing. And that makes such a big difference. What you've done is incredible. I truly appreciate it, since we use a lot of data and I know how heavy that data pipeline can get. And lenders, regulators make changes to those accounts and things change, and you have to be on top of that. We use a lot of data engineering processes to get the data, then move it to our data warehouse. And even that process has to be automated.
Right. Yeah. So what you're dealing with is probably, so what I deal with is mostly financial data, but what you're dealing with is a lot of the industry data, right?
Yeah.
So the data are different, but I believe the process wise, I mean, your process is way more robust, because it requires a lot of ETL, transform the data to be usable. That part is a lot. It's quite technical.
That's the key word there, making the data analytics ready. If you want to use it to derive insights or use it for anything, it has to be analytics ready, which requires all this cleaning and putting it in a format that can be picked up by system, by BI system, financial systems, and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So as the Senior Vice President of Financial Reporting in mortgage banking industry, what are the top 2 or 3 KPIs that every mortgage lender should be watching in today's market? Obsessively watching, actually. That's what I wanted to say. That's really the most important KPIs.
Well, I think, so of course, revenue, right? Revenue and related KPIs like gain on sale in terms of bips, gain on sale, the actual amount, right? The gain on sale mostly, because the gain on sale is the biggest component of the revenue.
Let me stop you for a second here,
Okay.
because I know that some people who are listening to the CMB Connect podcast are not mortgage bankers. Explain what you mean by gain on sale.
Gain on sale is mostly, so the mortgage bankers, mostly they originate loans using funds that came from mostly warehouse banks. They have a warehouse line of credit to borrow funds, and then they use the funds to fund the loans that borrowers requested. And then they don't hold on to the loans, because a lot of typical depository banks will hold on the loans. They will service the loans. They will collect principal and interest. And then that's the depository model. But for independent mortgage bankers, we don't hold on to the loans. We sell them into secondary marketing. And then when we sell into the market, we receive the money from the investors. And then we turn around, we pay off to the warehouse bank what we owe them, because we use their money to fund the loans from the first place. So the difference between what I sell into secondary market to what I use the money from the warehouse banks, that difference is the profit that an IMB makes. And that's a major part of the gain on sale. It's really the premium, the difference between what we sell for versus what we use the money for, right? For funding the loans. And there are other components of a gain on sale, like sometimes we will charge a processing fees. Sometimes we pass through some of the expenses, like credit report fees that we may collect from the customer, but we turn around. We also pay to the credit bureau the expenses. These expenses are mostly passed through in nature, but sometimes we may have a difference, like appraisal fee, for example. We may collect from customer a higher amount, or maybe you pass around, things like that. So there may be a premium in that process. So those are all part of the gain on sale and the direct net of direct costs.
Yeah, thank you. So revenue, number one, gain on sale, two.
Right. So revenue and gain on sale, in my opinion, it's just, we can think about it in one bucket, because they are the driver, right? That the driver of the revenue is mostly it's gain on sale. So that's, to me, the first ratio. The second ratio is we need to look at the expenses. And especially the biggest item for mortgage banker is salary, commission, overrides, and that kind of expenses. Usually accounts for about at least 60-70%, depending on different companies. But it's a pretty big driver of the expenses for a IMB. So we watch for expenses very closely, especially we track what is the commission, and compare with industry averages. And, what is the commission rate in terms of bips? What is the overrides? What is the fixed cost, meaning fixed salaries that we pay out as compared with, revenue, right? What is the percentage? Or you can compare with the productions. So we in mortgage industry, we tend to compare all those numbers against the production volume, and we calculate bips. What is a gain on sale bips in terms of bips? Is a gain on sale 300 bips or 350 bips? And then expenses, what is all those expenses, different categories of expense, mostly salary and compensation expenses. What are the expenses in terms of production? So these two are the biggest, the most important driver of profitability. And we track that pretty much on a daily, on a monthly basis.
Obsessively.
Right. Yeah. And we also look at a lot of other stuff, like on the hedging side. We look at, what is the hedging effectiveness. And we also, on the production side, we look at the cycle time or pull through, because pull through is a big indicator of future productions. So pull through is something that we also track very closely. We look at profitability by different channels, by different regions, because we need to compare which channel is more profitable versus less. And
you're talking about loan channel, right? like
Yes,
broker,
yes.
correspondent.
Like we have mostly retail channel, but we also have a
Yes.
lot of the affiliate company. So we the affiliate company, the builder affiliates, real estate
Yes.
affiliate, and then we also
Mhm.
have a small piece of consumer direct or maybe a CLD
Yes.
channel. So we kind of put them into different perspectives and then try to analyze which channel it has a higher profitability versus a lower profitability.
Mm-hmm.
And we also track productivity measures very, very closely. So we track how many loans per loan officer produce, and how many loans per processor, how many loans per underwriter,
Right.
how many
Right.
loans per total company employee count. And we compare with industry averages, Stramel, for example. So we want to see where we stand.
Mm-hmm.
What is the technology cost as compared with total cost? And then also, a lot of time we compare with industry averages and to see where we are at. If we are having a high percentage of technology costs, for example, then why is that? And we dig
Mm-hmm.
into the numbers to see whether there's any cost savings there, whether we should renegotiate contracts or things like that. So we do look at the different kinds of metrics just to see
Yes.
how we are
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. So to summarize, on the financial side, revenue and expenses, and revenue, the biggest part is gain on sale.
Yes,
Then on operational side, you're looking at the pull-through rate and you're looking at your channel performance.
right. And
And then
expenses, right.
and expenses. Then you're looking at productivity per MLO and the different
Right,
functions in your, yeah.
right. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. This is a great advice, and hopefully it will spur people's thinking when they hear the podcast. But also, I want to go back to the main theme of our podcast, which is the certified mortgage banker designation. And I know for sure that many people are studying currently to get their CMB designation. So I want to finish with a question. What is your advice for mortgage professionals who are currently studying for their CMB? What should they be doing more or less of?
I think yes, first of all, there's not really a shortcut. I know, for at least from my perspective, I spent a lot of time on preparing for the CMB exam, and I started January of this year. That was when I had a prep course. I attended a prep course, and I finished by July of this year. So it took me 7 months to go through the whole process, and I didn't have one day of break during that 7 months. So meaning I wasn't taking breaks. I wasn't having weekends. I didn't have holidays. I was studying at night, pretty much every night. So I didn't take any breaks for the 7 months. So it's pretty hard journey in my opinion,
Mhm.
but it's all worth it. So my advice is to focus on understanding instead of memorizing, because if you try to memorize everything, it's not possible. Our brain is not designed for that. So focus on studying. I remember, so when I talked to my sponsor, Bob Manser, who was a wonderful, wonderful sponsor, he encouraged
Yes.
me along the way. He's always very, very encouraging and very positive. And I told him about I shared some concerns to him. I was like, I wasn't even sure, like the oral exam, I, I, I feel like, my English I'm still learning my English, and I don't think this is my forte, and I get nervous when I speak English. And he just dissipates all my concerns and give me a lot of encouragement. So encouragement is important, because along the way, especially for me, for about 2 or 3 months, I was really, really trying to push through. I was almost on the verge of burnout because
Oh.
I tried, and then I realized I'm not learning fast enough because there's too many materials to cover, and it's just not going fast enough. I was being very ambitious. And I thought if I give up my yoga class, if I give up my dance class, if I give up all the exercises and spend all the time. I don't sleep, I only keep the minimum amount of sleep. If I do that, I can remember better. I can do more. I can learn better. But I realized in the middle of it, I felt like I'm not going anywhere. There's just too much. So I got almost frustrated in the middle. My sponsor, Bob Manser, encouraged me along the way and pushed me through. And he even gave me 5 or 6 sessions of training to cover every topic, every sections. I think 6 sections. So he gave me 6 lessons with some other CMB candidates. He sacrifices a lot of his personal time for me, and plus the mentorship, the encouragement. So I'm very, very grateful for him. So I think that's my biggest advice is to focus on understanding, not trying to memorizing. I remember at the beginning of the process, Bob sent me a PDF. The PDF's name is 80 different ways to use ChatGPT. And I benefited a lot from, although I did not go over the whole 80 different ways, but I began to set up an account with ChatGPT, and I utilize ChatGPT a lot in my study. So when you're reading something, and because you're not working in that area, so you don't understand what they're talking about, so you just make a copy and a paste and into the ChatGPT and say that help me to understand. Or clarify or explain or give me examples. Ask many, many whys. And ChatGPT does a good job in breaking the hard component into small, mini digestible parts. And I benefit a lot from using ChatGPT. But of course, sometimes it can hallucinate.
Yes.
And sometimes after I'm asking many, many why and explain or clarify or give me examples, I felt like I'm not going anywhere. So I stopped. And the next day I try one more time. So just repeat that process. The repetition eventually get me understand the certain topic. So the more you understand, the more you relieve yourself from memorizing it. Because even if you memorize it, one, it's not possible to memorize it. So even if you memorize it, by the time you go to the exam, no matter it's a written exam or oral exam, just retrieving is going to be a problem. And also, just memorizing does not help you to really digest and understand the content. So the questions change, or the format changes, or the perspective changes. It's very hard to really answer that question to the point.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this advice. So what I heard is there are no shortcuts. You have to learn, but focus on understanding rather than memorization. Encouragement. Number 2, encouragement is very important. And that was very touching, your story about Bob Manser. I know Bob very well. I didn't know that he sacrifices so much of his time. And 3, utilize modern technology. Why not?
Right.
Why not? But with some guardrails and with some thought process, how you're going to do that, because you can't trust it completely.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And that's a wrap. I want to thank you so much, Nancy, for this amazing conversation. I learned from you, and I'm actually inspired by you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, it
You're
was
my
real.
example, I told you before.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to thank all of our listeners today as well. Don't forget to follow us. This is CMB Connect, where we go behind the designation.